Yes, yes, yes! You know what that sound means? We are back! It's in the Paddock F1, Greeny and the Cheese. We're back after that summer break, and we're not in Belgium this time. How about that? Can't remember the last time that happened. We're in Holland. Holland, known for its windmills, bicycles, dams, cheese markets, wooden shoes. It's home to Van Gogh, Rembrandt, the actor who played Ray Batty in Blade Runner, and the actress who played the Red Witch in Game of Thrones. I thought you'd like that one there, Michael. But
That's
enough with that.
thing.
This is an F1. That's enough with that. This is an F1 show. For the 33rd time, it's the Dutch Grand Prix. We're racing on the banks of the North Sea. Pretty much really on the banks. You go over those dunes, you're right there on the beach.
You're on the sea.
We're racing Zandvoort. We're racing Zandvoort, 2.647 miles, 14 corners, 2 DRS zones. You give it the full beans for 58% of your lap. And oh man, oh man, oh man, what a race we got today. That rain came chucking down a lot harder and quicker than anybody thought that was going to happen. That chaos ensued. People were all over the place. Crazy strategies all about. People got it dead wrong. But the Red Army didn't leave disappointed as their hero, Max, takes his 9th in a row, tying Seb's record for 9 races in a row. Yeah, that's going to be broken in a week's time. Alonso takes 2nd. Gasly in the Alpine. How about that takes 3rd? We're caffeinated. We're medicated. Greeny, good afternoon, sir.
Aren't they the Orange Army? Isn't the Red Army like the Soviet Union's?
Oh, did I say red? I meant
I think you were thinking of a different part of Europe, sir. But all good. Greeny and Cheese in the Paddock F1. The Dutch Grand Prix, one of many of Max Verstappen's homes. He definitely made it home today when winning third straight, I believe. Third straight pole in Zandvoort. And good to see Zandvoort back as he's dominating the return of that track in its 3rd year back. And outside of that, listen, as always, as we've seen this season, as we've seen especially the last 9 races where Max has not just won, but pretty much dominated every single one of those races, it's 2nd place is what we're rooting for. So really it was exciting just watching for 2nd and how exciting that was with Fernando Alonso. Still got it, man. We were sitting here last year amazed how he still got it, and he still has it competing against these guys. I know people keep telling me to like guys like Fangio or like guys like back in the day, like those very different. These are very elite athletes now. This is massive competition. This is not a niche sport as it may be. This is a sport that has much wider access all over the world, and you have some of the best athletes in the world competing. So what Fernando Alonso is doing and continues to do is just absolutely spectacular, cutting through the rain and finishing 2nd. I think everyone forgot about Fernando this weekend and going into this weekend. And you could really tell at the end of Q3 where Fernando ended up coming in 5th? Mm-hmm. 5th in Q3, and I think people forgot about him. People didn't think he was still going to go up there and be top 3 rows still with everything
that's because
McLaren's doing,
struggling.
Everything the McLaren's doing, everything that Mercedes has been doing, and kind of pushed Aston Martin out. But Aston Martin came with some upgrades this weekend, and it didn't help Lance Stroll much, but it definitely helped Fernando Alonso. Lance Stroll, who was lapped today, versus his teammate who was on the podium. I can't remember the last time that happened. I'm sure it has, but when your teammate makes the podium and you're lapped. So here we are again, Dutch Grand Prix, Max Verstappen, same old. We start the second half the same way we finished the first half. And geez, your thoughts on today? We had not mentioned Ferrari yet. Oh, there was some stuff going on with Ferrari.
I'll get into that later. I'm saving that for later.
But your thoughts on a 9th straight tying Sebastian Vettel's record and Max Verstappen doing it in front of his probably 99% fan base there?
It was probably like 99.9% Max fans, to be honest. I mean, there didn't seem like there was anybody outside of an orange shirt in that entire crowd. Even the ponchos they were bringing out were orange. It was totally out of control. But Max was just absolutely dominant. Brought him in later than his teammate. That's why Perez was in the lead there at the start when the chaos began with the rain. But I mean, once Max threw on the inners, he was 3-4 seconds quicker than Perez per lap.
It was crazy.
Just like running him down, even if I mean, he would have had him anyway. To be honest, it was just insane how absolutely dominant he is right now compared even to his teammate who's in the same car and looks like he's not even driving the same car. It's absolutely ridiculous how far and ahead he's to everybody else. Interesting seeing Merck get that strategy just dead wrong there at the start. Like, absolutely dead wrong.
Not often. Not often do you see that.
Not often do you see that. No, not often do you see that. So that was a little something that I was just totally surprised to see, that they got that dead wrong. I mean, even, Russell did have his issue later in the race with the, a puncture and, ruined his race there at the end, but...
Yeah, not much you can do about that.
Even he was on the radio early there going, how did we get this dead wrong? I was to get a podium, and now I'm squandering back here in 18th. So that was interesting to see. I'll say Ferrari for later because I got a lot of disgust with that, especially with that first pit stop. But we'll get into that because that was disgusting. Alpine coming back after they've been in just an absolute disaster.
Absolute free fall.
Before free for all, the last, I would say, 3 races or so before the break. Then to come back, get a podium, been both cars in the top 10. That was wild to see. The weather and everything like that definitely had something to contribute, I'm sure. But you get both cars in the top 10 after the mess that team's been in. That was, interesting to see for the mid pack. As you stated, Alonso, just the absolute ageless wonder. And I got a little something for you for Stroll later in the program too.
All right.
A little something for you.
I like a little Lance Stroll.
That'll get you, I think, to chuckle a bit.
Oh, anything about Lance Stroll makes me chuckle. The fact that he's Formula One makes me chuckle.
I think you really enjoy that then. But yeah, it was just wild race, and how the teams, all of them got it so dead wrong on the weather at the start. I mean, Formula One teams are usually pretty darn spot on, giving the drivers, whether the rain's going to be here in, 3 minutes and it's going to come from this corner on or whatever. And to get it that dead wrong, to not see that it was just going to absolutely chuck down. I mean, that was coming down there all of a sudden. And nobody was prepared for that. That was a little shock to see. Because these teams are usually on that. And to see them all just get that absolutely dead wrong, that was wild to see.
Yeah, listen, it's not easy, as we know, as it once was. We were in this pattern for many, many years back in the day where we really didn't know what was coming with the weather. Everything was really far behind. And then you ended up really in the last 20 years with real quick, up-to-date patterns and rain patterns. I'm not going to get into, this is not a global warming show. This is not, but I think weather patterns themselves have changed drastically, where you're looking out the window 1 minute and it's completely clear, and then all of a sudden it's raining. I've experienced that a lot here in the northeast of the United States over the past, I would say, year or two, where out of nowhere a rainstorm comes, and I'm constantly on my app. I'm looking, looking at the weather, looking at the clouds coming in, and when it says there's no rain for the next 4 hours, and then all of a sudden it rains, that's happened more often than it happened previously. And I think as the technology gets better, we are more unprepared. So I don't know if it was everyone dropping the ball. I don't know if it was a pattern that we're seeing in climate-wise, and this, of course, affects. There's no indoor Formula One races. There's no option to go indoors. unless they're all going to just do e-racing or sim racing, then you're going to have to be outdoors. And with that, there has to be a better way to do this, or a contingent plan when and if and when there's going to be a storm coming, that it's the last minute that you can pull something out. I know Zandvoort itself has the second smallest paddock in all the races in Formula One outside of Monaco, of course, but you have to have a plan. If you just have a bunch of ideas, you're going to get these situations over and over again. And it could have been a dangerous situation. Vehicles coming into the pits not prepared with tires prepared, as I'm sure you'll get to that later. With Ferrari today, that disaster. But it's a dangerous situation when you have people walking around over there, cars coming in really quick, a lot of rain coming down. And not good when you have no plan. And today was obvious that Formula One and none of the teams had a plan for what's going to happen when it just starts pouring buckets.
Chucking rain.
Chucking. I never heard chucking rain before.
Get that chucking rain. Come chucking down.
From the heavens. From the Lord in the heavens, chucking the rain in buckets. Learn something new every day, new terminology.
That's right.
And I learned this week
from
my friends in Ireland who taught me a new term. Got to use the jack. We call it the John here in the U.S. I was asked if I had a jack they can use. I thought I was going to jack up their car. Like when you change the tire. It's the only jack I had reference to. But no, they needed to use the bathroom or the loo. But anyway, this is a Formula One show. This is not a global vernacular show. Greeny and cheese. Any last word on anything that you saw before we go to a quick break here?
We'll take care of that in the next segment. Don't you?
All right. Greeny and cheese in the paddock F1. We're back after this. Oh, yeah. In the paddock F1, Greeny and the cheese. It's race day, and what a mess it was. Somehow Max Verstappen just tears through the rain or any conditions every time, and just tears through it and just deals with it, and ends up on first 9 straight times, ties the record. He's going for the record next race. I might be going for a record here. So I think I'm at like 9 straight times that I've lost the Quizmaster's cockpit here. So let's try to make that a 10 straight here as we line ourselves up for 3 laps, 3 questions. Cheese has got them. Hopefully I can answer them. To his delight, hopefully I can answer none of them and he can go laugh and smile and grin ear to ear. But here I am with my bell, ready to roll and try to get some answers correct.
We'll say. I think you should do pretty good this week.
All right. That's usually the kiss of death.
But then I say that before, and it's an absolute mess. So here we go. Question 1. Are you ready?
Sure.
That was said with absolute pure confidence.
Sure.
All right. Question 1. How many times has F1 raced the Dutch Grand Prix, including today?
Well, I was paying attention to your opening for once, and you said 33, so I'm going to go with that, 33.
That is correct.
Breaking it up, only from the 50s. Only from the 50s breaking it up. Zandvoort's been around for a while. I got a Zandvoort poster here, original from like 71 that I got to hang up. Would have been a good day to hang it up.
Might have been.
Not inappropriate. It's got a post right behind me.
But
right to Iron Mike.
But if ifs and buts for candy and nuts.
It'll be Merry Christmas for us all.
Question number 2. How many circuits have held the Dutch Grand Prix?
Ooh. Is it only this property? Two?
That is wrong. You were actually going to be correct.
I was right. It was one. I knew it was one. I knew it was one. I knew it was one. Same track that they raced him back in the 50s.
They've only raced at Zandvoort. You know, you also got to figure this a little something there, Michael. You know, just trying to process that question. Holland is not a big country.
No. Beautiful country.
So, you know, there's not going to be a lot of places they're going to be throwing in a big racetrack.
No. It's not a small country either.
It's not a small country. A lot of it's under sea level though, so that's a little trouble. But anyway, I digress. But that is
Please
pretty
digress.
much ruined your lap there. Ruined your lap there. But we're gonna ask you the third one anyway. What driver has more wins now than Max Verstappen at Zandvoort? There's only one.
What driver has more wins than Max Verstappen in Zandvoort?
And that would be 4 wins. Give you a little hint. I'm sure that's not going to be a really good hint for you, but
Who has 4 wins at Zandvoort? I should know.
probably, yeah.
Should know. Is he British?
Yes.
All right. It's like playing
really not really going to narrow it down there for you, but you know, it's been a lot of really good British drivers out there.
Now he's down some. For sure now he's down. Now he's down plenty.
All right, let's get a guess here. Come on, let's go.
Gonna go with Hill.
No, Jim Clark.
Jim Clark. Yeah, late 50s.
Won it in 63, 64, 65, and 67.
Or mid 60s. How about that?
Well, how about that?
How about that?
Well, that's 2 out of 3 wrong, so that means you're a loser.
I am a loser.
And as decreed on this program many moons ago, how you perform in that segment shows us what goes on in this next segment. So you're a loser, so we're going to go right into losers.
It's fair.
I'm going to give it to Sergio Perez. Definitely a loser. Your teammate absolutely dominates. You speed in the pits. You lose the podium.
That was
That's
bad.
just an absolute mess.
That was bad.
That's an absolute mess. That was an absolute mess. And no wonder why the team chose to bring Max in first later in the race than you. Because you stink. All right? And that's why you're a loser this week. Yet again, you should be finishing second. No ands ifs or buts about it. No mistakes. The team doesn't make mistakes. Throwing that, what was that, 2.2 second pit stop for Max there during the race? Just ridiculous. So I'm going to give a loser to Perez. And I'm also going to give a loser to Tsunoda. Guy who's driving on the other side of the garage didn't even know he was going to be driving until Friday afternoon. Never even drove a Formula One car in the wet before.
And he beat him. And he
And he beats you. That's embarrassing.
It's bad.
That's a loser. That's a
It's
loser
bad.
performance right there. That's awful. That's absolutely awful.
That's bad. If that's your loser, I can only imagine what your slap yourself is there.
That was almost a slap. If Ferrari didn't mess up that first pit stop, that would have been an automatic slap there for sure.
Give it up for the young man jumping in there, thinking he's be sitting on the couch all weekend watching the race, and jumped in there and not that far off of a points position and beating some pretty touted drivers. I know Mercedes had some problems, but finished ahead of George Russell in your first shot out there in the Mercedes. That's not too bad of a day, especially finishing dead last coming in, or ended up 19th with K-Max starting in the pit lane, but not good.
We'll get into that in a minute. Let's hear your losers. Who you got?
It's a lot of. I mean, I'm going to start like I said before with Lance Stroll. If I'm going to go with the same exact premise that you just had. If your teammate finishes on the podium, you better finish in the points. Yeah. If your teammate finishes on the podium and you don't finish on the points, you're a loser that weekend. Okay, unless something drastic happened, and nothing did. If you're finishing the race, he didn't have any punctures. He didn't have any crashes. He didn't have any time penalties. And you finish 11th when your teammate comes in second? Are you kidding me? And it just looks worse and worse every single race out with Lance Stroll underperforms. And then he'll show up and have a 5th out of nowhere, or 6th, and everything will be hunky-dory again. But these are bad performances. I mean, he finished right by Liam Lawson. I mean, that's the factor right now. That's the Mendoza line today. If you finish anywhere in that neighborhood, and you have any penalties or anything happening, that's your Mendoza line. That is like as just as the worst part of acceptable as you can be. For anyone who got that reference, baseball reference, but it's just like the bare minimum of acceptable. Like it's like getting like the lowest marks in school without failing. Yeah. That's where I put Lance Stroll this week, and I need another loser. I mean,
you don't have to.
Yeah, there's plenty of losers out there. I mean, I could look at McLaren, who crushed it all weekend, and then turns around and is can't drive in the wet at all. But I'm going to. I mean, is George Russell just the obvious right there? Just sitting there.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you kind of have
a lot of problems. There's a lot of problems with Mercedes, but Lewis Hamilton had problems too today. Lewis Hamilton had problems too today. From beginning of the race to the end of the race, and he managed to come in 6th, and George Russell came in 17th. So I know George Russell had his own problems today. Some of them was out of his control, but that not a good day for Mercedes overall, especially after coming out with a lot of double point finishes. And overall, I think second in constructors. So you expect a little bit more, both from Hamilton and from George Russell this weekend, from both drivers. So I think that's fair, especially when you have, you're better than Mercedes, or you're better than Ferrari. Mercedes is better than Ferrari, and you're letting Carlos Sainz finish in front of you. Ferrari's a disaster, which I'm sure you'll get to in a moment. But those are my losers for the week. Which brings us to, sir, your winners.
Winners this week. There was a lot of winners, actually, to be honest. I'm going right off the bat, you got to give it to Kid Lawson. 13th, didn't even know he was going to be in the car. Hasn't even driven in a Formula One car in wet conditions, and you drop a 13th? That's pretty darn solid. That's a solid drive. That's a really solid drive.
Well,
and I'm going to give it to Alex Albon. Didn't come in for the wets. Stayed out in the dries the whole race. Got a nice solid top 10 there for Williams. So I'm going to give it to the Tire Whisperer.
Alex Tire Whisperer was out in full force. Absolutely. They were talking about it all weekend, and it came to fruition here. Listen, anytime Williams can score a point in this climate at the moment with this 2023 Williams car, very disappointing. Logan Sargent, first driver since Michael Andretti in '93 to start top 10. I believe that's correct. First driver since Michael Andretti in 1983 in the McLaren.
That was a bit of a heartbreak there for Sargent. Had that really good quality.
That was rough. That was rough.
The car in the top, gets in the top 10, had 2 Williams in the top 10.
I would love to give him the winner's circle this week.
And then he had, he spins out in the race, and I mean, he could have also possibly even got points there too.
Yeah,
and a double Williams finish.
Did you?
They were not give pretty quick.
Did you not give any love to Pierre Gasly so far? Because Pierre Gasly,
I did not give the Alpines. I was going to leave the Alpine to you.
Pierre Gasly. Well, first of all, both Alpines taking points, but Pierre Gasly specifically. If you heard him post race, he was a man who sounded like he just won 5 Super Bowls. That was an unexpected, especially after getting torn up this season in Alpine. Alpine has stunk this season. Let's face it. They had a lot of management situations, they had a lot of internal strife, external strife. And you know what? When you look at something, like that, you're from the outside looking in, from the inside looking out, it probably was way worse. So maybe it was just personalities, maybe it was addition by subtraction in Alpine, but whatever they did, holy moly. They really brought it today. I don't know if it was the strategy that got them in there, or it was a combination of both upgrades and strategy. That's what it seems like it was. And got to give it up for Alpine, but specifically Pierre Gasly. It was a podium. Who saw that coming? Nobody. Which, sir,
that was a Mad Hatter trifecta, to be honest.
That was a Mad Hatter trifecta. That was not my Mad Hatter trifecta. We'll get to that in a moment. But, sir, there's only one thing left to do. Long pause.
All right. Here we go. It's Ferrari. That first pit stop. And mainly you might have to give it to Charles Leclerc here to slap your darn self. How do you come into the pit lane? You're in the pit lane. You're entering the pit lane. And that's when you tell your team you're coming in for tires. You gave him no chance to react, because you can't bring tire blankets into the pit lane. So the crew has to get the tires ready, get them off the rack, get the tire blankets off, and get them out in the pit lane for you to come in for your stop. And you're going to tell them when you're entering the pit lane to do this. What the heck is that? That's a mess. I mean, the team there does enough problems getting the strategy wrong enough. And then you're going to do that to mess. That's just a big mess. That's just a mess. You got to be freaking kidding me. You got to be fracking kidding me. You got to be fracking kidding me.
It's like whenever you leave home and then you're driving home and you call your parents and you're like, I'm coming over for dinner. And they're like, oh, great. What day? I don't know, like 20 minutes? Can you whip I'm really hungry. Can you whip something up? That's what that was.
Yeah.
Just whip something up.
Fair.
It's not going to be gourmet Friday night when you're coming in essence and whip something up. It's going to be a mess. And it was a mess. And it set the tone for the whole day for Ferrari. And Ferrari, the last thing Ferrari needed coming back into the second half of the season, really trying to compete with Mercedes and McLaren and Aston Martin, and now Alpine, and to just blow it so early in the race was just bad. That was really bad, and that set the tone for the whole race. And you had Leclerc not finishing. Carlos Sainz, who looked good down the stretch and ended up finishing 5th. Possibly was on pace for a podium at one point, pace-wise.
Nah, you know that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
You knew that wasn't going to happen. Let's be real. So anyway, get out the powder and just slap yourselves. Just slap yourselves. Disgust. Absolute disgust. And I'm done.
All right. Well, we are done, at least with this segment. When we come back, I got a bag of tricks for you. Greeny the cheese in the paddock F1. We'll be back. Come on.
Oh, yes. We're back. In the Paddock F1 Green and Cheese. You know what that sound means, boys and girls. It's time to take that weekly fantasy ride to that fantasy island of great hopes. The beer flows like wine and the wine flows like beer. And the cannabis, oh yeah, it grows as far as the eyes can see. Look at it. Look at it. Green and luscious. Take a little whiff. Ah, that air smells fantastic. Tickets in hand, we take a little walk to the top of the hill. It's that casino at the top. Are we cashing in? Or are we checking out?
Let that music play out, man. Still got it worked.
Ah, it's the greatest theme song going right now, boys.
Still got it worked out. Oh, it wants to go twice. No, we don't want to go on twice. Let's come back again. It wants to go back a third time. It just won't die. So, sir, this is the second half of the season, as I promised, for many, many, many weeks now, as I would need to, down by 600 greenie bucks and 9 races to go. There's only one thing that needs to happen. It's time, once again, for the Mad Hat. It's quite a mad hat. But I got it. We're mad hatting.
Fits you
It
perfectly.
does fit me perfectly. Right out of the Amazon bag. Fits perfectly, and I am ready to go because I am Sir the Mad Hatter. And as the Mad Hatter, we had to up our ante this week. I bet a total of 600 greenie bucks to your only 200 greenie bucks, trying to get ahead of the game. But what happens, sir, every time we go to the Mad Hatter, it doesn't work out too well. You didn't work out too well either, but you bet low. You bet low. I bet like a Mad Hatter. So with the Mad Hatter bet, I dropped 200 on Max, which was good because at least I won that bet. You also dropped 100 on Max. Good thing you got that. You won. But I went with the trifecta of... I had a Fernando Alonso in there. That worked out pretty well. You didn't. I also had Lando Norris in there. That didn't work well at all. Of course, I had Max Verstappen in there. Who did you have? Would you have a Ferrari in there?
No.
You had Max and George Russell. Whatever junk you had. Lando Norris. You lost. Did you have Perez in? You didn't even have Perez in there. Neither of us had Perez in there. That's probably a bad job by both of us, even though he came in fourth anyway. No one was getting the trifecta this week. No one was getting the trifecta. And the biggest gainer ended up being Pierre Gasly, who ended up on the podium. You had Esteban Ocon. And I went with K-Mac, who both of us got +6. So it wasn't that bad. Tied for second. I said Pierre Gasly came in first, but who else tied? There's a 3-way tie for second place for gainers, and Liam Lawson. How about that? +6 places today. So no one got anything. I am all the way down back under the starting point. I went over, and now I'm under at 4,800 greenie bucks, and you're staying steady at 5,600 greenie bucks. Get this hat out of here. We'll be Mad Hatter again maybe next week. We'll see if the Mad Hatter comes out. Because now I'm in real trouble. I'm down 800 greenie bucks with 9 races to go. I got a lot to make up in a little bit of time. I'm going to hit some of these Mad Hatters at some point. I'm going to have to hit one of these wacky trifectas. So we will see next week if the Mad Hatter comes back. It wasn't too mad. I still had Verstappen winning.
He will. He'll be back. Well, if you don't bet Max, you're a fool to win. Let's be honest at this point.
At this point, it's pretty hard not to. I think we'll see that for the next year or two. I think at some point we're going to see a change in that. It's some competition. It feels like forever, but it's only really been 2 years. 2021 was a very competitive year. Yeah. It's only been this year and last.
Yeah. That's fair.
Well, it's the truth.
Well, yeah.
It's the truth. Which leaves us, sir, with only one thing. And that is...
In the news!
In the news! I'm sure you want to start off with what happened on Friday, which led to the aforementioned Liam Lawson. But I'll let you steer the ship here.
All right, well, we got, as if anybody didn't know, Danny Ricciardo had surgery today on his hand that he injured on Friday, trying to avoid Piastri there, who had wrecked, who had crashed himself. And Danny didn't sit. And then he had the crash to avoid an even bigger crash. But it is said now, after with the surgery going today, that he should be able to return in Singapore. Will you be excited to see Danny come back? Or does he come back?
Listen, the way Lawson ran today, maybe Yuki Tsunoda is so bad that the car is better than we think. I mean, that's a possibility at this point. I don't want to dismiss that so quickly. No offense to Danny Ricciardo, which means that Nick DeVries was just really wretched. That's why they had to get rid of him. I mean, obviously, if you can't beat Yuki Tsunoda, then you probably shouldn't be a Formula One driver. Because look what happened with Liam Lawson. Liam Lawson couldn't even do anything in quali. He was so lost. He was lost out there. Come on. Was he not lost out there in qualifying?
Well, as you would expect him to be. As you would absolutely expect him to be, with no time being in the car. That was absolutely to be expected. And the performance that he put in was absolutely brilliant. It was a brilliant performance. But no, I wouldn't be... But no, that's a good bar, I guess. It's a little rough, but... If you can't finish in front of Yuki, you shouldn't be in Formula One. I mean, that's harsh.
It looks like the truth after today. I mean, you gotta tell me something different.
Man, you throw off the Mad Hatter hat, happy-go-lucky crazy Mad Hatter, and you go to savagery.
It's pretty savage. But it's the truth. It's the truth. I don't think there's anything surprising.
All right, next question.
All right, go. Keep going.
This one is really good for you right here.
All right.
Haas has announced the lineup for next year will be the exact same as this year. Are you excited?
You know, it wasn't terrible today, to be honest. You know, we got both cars over the finish line, both with plus net gain across the board. So, you know, talk to me next week and we'll see. Could it be better? I don't know if a better driver. I don't know if the car's good enough to have a better driver in it. I don't know if it's worth it to put.
I don't know who you're getting.
If the car's not going to be competitive, what are we competing for? The 7th best team? The 8th best team? I mean, is that worth it to put all that money down on the driver? Get a good car first and get an attractive car. If you build it, they will come. If you build it, good drivers will want to drive your car. If you put garbage out there or put really towards the back end of the field vehicles out there, who's going to want to drive it? So yeah, I think you need to look at it the other way. I think Haas is lucky to have anyone that even wants to drive their vehicles that has the ability to drive another F1 team. And honestly, I don't think K-Mag or I don't think anyone in the Haas lexicon has any opportunity to drive for another team. Magnussen or Hulkenberg are not. If Haas doesn't ask them back, no one's knocking on their door to bring him over to their team. Is that true? Is there some truth to that?
I would say yes.
So I think you're both lucky to have each other. Okay?
All right, and our final question here in the news. I really can't wait for your response on this one.
Oh, I'm excited.
Read this article, made me fall off the couch. Rumor has it, Lance Stroll is considering to quit F1 and the transition to start playing tennis. On the
I heard this.
Lance denied it, saying it was made up by somebody drunk on a couch. Well, you know what? I got a question for you. Should he consider it?
You should definitely consider doing something else that's not Formula One for the sake of everyone involved. I think, first of all, I think it's ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. I think this man, I have no idea what his tennis ability is. I have zero clue what his tennis ability is. But I think it's ludicrous to think you can switch to a different sport. After motorsport's so much different. So much different. I've never heard of anyone switching out of any motorsport to go to any other professional sport. Am I missing someone? Was there someone back in the day that like drove motorsport and then went on to play, soccer in Brazil? I mean, was there somebody on any kind of level? I've heard of bands.
That I'm aware of.
I've heard of all different kinds of people from all different walks of life that have entered race car driving, whether it be whatever, Indy, Formula One, whatever it might be. I've seen many athletes purchase vehicles and purchase teams, but I've never seen anyone drive for a team. So vice versa. I think it's absolute lunacy. I'm sure he was drunk one night and said to his buddies, or went out and played tennis with someone who was like a semi-pro and smashed him. But the discipline it takes to switch a sport, that's crazy. That's crazy. You know nothing about sports and professional sports and what these people go through on a daily basis. You think you just pick up from Formula One. And why? Well, if he stinks in tennis, it's not going to be like his daddy's going to come and save him. That's not going to happen. So, you're on your own. Why would you want to be on your own? If your dad owns one of the biggest companies in town, why are you going to work for anyone else? No, he'll be with Williams the rest of his life. He will drive for Williams. He will, for Aston Martin. He will retire with Aston Martin. He will go somewhere on their team, somewhere. He'll be there forever. Where's he going? Not to play tennis. That's lunacy. Lunacy. I will bet you any amount of money you'll never hear this story again. This will be the end of it.
I would agree with that, but I thought it was gosh darn funny when I read it.
It's funny that it actually made the news. There was actually a lot of stories this week. There were a lot of stories this week, which we're going to miss out on. Maybe we'll get to in the subsequent weeks. But anything final before we shove off until next time?
It's only a week's time.
It's only a week's time.
The Temple of Speed, baby.
Let's do it.
Going to Monza. So until then, as always, stay medicated, my friends.
Peace.